Good morning, everybody. It's great to see everyone here today. I appreciate that kind introduction from Mike. Young man. I thought after you made it to the 50s club, you didn't get called that anymore, but I appreciate that. Of course, I was also wondering if there for a second he's talking about a young man. I was wondering if he wasn't confused on who was speaking this morning and who was speaking tonight. I thought he might have been fixing to introduce Bailey. Do you want to go this morning? No? Okay. But Bailey, he will be preaching for us tonight, and I'd like to encourage all of you to come back tonight and support him and encourage him. And I know he's put a lot of time into it, and I'm sure that he'll be well prepared and he'll do a great job for us. You know, Morgan and the kids, or Josh and Morgan and the kids, you know, they're away for a couple of Sundays now, and they're visiting with family, and so we know they've all been a little under the weather, so hopefully they're all doing well now, and they get to enjoy some great time with their family for the next couple of weeks. We wish them the best. And as I mentioned, of course, Bailey will be preaching tonight, and we're looking forward to that. But also, after this morning's service, if you're able, stick around for a few more minutes. Our elders will be presenting next year's budget. You know, preparing the budget is an important task for the Lord's church. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of wisdom in preparing a budget. And we certainly appreciate the elders for all that they put into that each year. And with that in mind, for this morning's lesson, I'd like for us to think about a budget. Now, before any of you jump to the conclusion of, oh great, the treasurer of all people is going to preach to us about our giving, the one who knows how much we all give. Well, don't worry about that. I promise it's not going to be like that. Budgets can be a very useful tool in trying to make decisions as to where you spend your money. Some of you may have budgets that you have for your own homes. But for a few minutes this morning, I'd like for us to think about a budget not based on money, but based on time. What would a budget based on our time look like? Or another way, what do we spend our time on in this life? We all understand the basics of time. There's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week, and so on and so on and so on. To a certain extent, our lives do revolve around time. A lot of what we do is based off of the time. You know, what time do I have to get out of bed? What time do I have to be at work? What time do I have to be at school? What time am I going to eat? What time am I going to go to bed? You know, what time does the game start? Everything is about what time everything begins. And we're always watching the time to see when it's time for the next thing in our life. Clocks were invented for this purpose. How many times a day do people do this? All day long, don't we? We're always checking the time. We need to know what time it is. Some of y'all might even be thinking, wonder what time he's going to quit preaching this morning. Hopefully y'all not doing that. But time is a huge part of our lives. Someone once said, time is very important. It is the most precious commodity in the world. While time being the most precious commodity in the world, that could be debatable, I guess, it nonetheless is very important in our lives. I believe two things prove the importance of time. One, once it's gone forever. There's no getting it back. And whatever we've done with our time in the past, it is gone also. And no matter what we've done, if it's good things or bad things, we have to live with the results of that. If we've not been wise with our time that's already passed, then hopefully, at the very least, as we move forward, we will be able to learn from our mistakes of the past. 1 Corinthians 10, the Apostle Paul wrote about the bad examples of the Israelites and how we should learn from that. 1 Corinthians 10:11, now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our instruction. We must learn from the time that's already passed because we can't get it back and change it. We must learn from the bad examples of the Israelites and from our own bad examples from our times past. The second thing that proves the importance of time, we have no way of knowing how much time we have left. We're all familiar with James 4:14, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. We're all planning on making it through the rest of the day. We're all planning on waking up tomorrow and going about another week of work, school, or whatever it is. But we just simply don't know. Tomorrow is not guaranteed for us. It may come and it may not. It's like a vapor. It's here one moment, it can be gone the very next. This makes time very important. So then, if we are blessed to have more time on this earth, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to spend the remaining time that we do have left for our life here on this earth? There are several things, I guess, that we could say are requirements of our time. We have to go to work. You kids, y'all have to go to school. You know, we have to spend time sleeping. We have to spend time eating. You have to spend time going to doctor's appointments, various things. We have to spend time eating. We have to spend time grocery shopping. And there could be other things that we might consider as requirements, things that, you know, we have to do in this life, things that we have to spend our time on. But what about our free time? You know, that time that we actually have the opportunity to choose what we do with that time. I'll use my family as a simple example. I've mentioned several times over the years that we love to go camping. Y'all know this, I've mentioned this several times. And as we go camping, you know, we go with the mindset that we are choosing to go camping as often as we possibly can because we love it so much. In preparing for a camping trip, it takes a lot of time. If we're going to go somewhere new, we will spend countless hours surfing the internet to try to find the right campground to stay at. The camper has to be cleaned. If anything's broken, I've got to spend time fixing it. You've got to pack the camper. When you get back, you've got to unpack the camper. You've got to go to town, buy groceries and supplies, whatever we need for the trip. You've got to have all that stuff, and it takes time. But I'll gladly spend whatever amount of time it takes to make sure we have a great camping trip. Several years ago, Ellis chose to be in a high school band. And with that, he's had to spend a lot of time for things pertaining to the band. Practices, games, competitions, parades, participation in all-state bands and honor bands. And he gladly spends all that time doing these things because he loves it. Several years ago, Owen chose to play sports. In his younger years, he played rec league football, baseball, and basketball. He's played basketball every year since he was 5 years old, and he's currently on the junior high varsity basketball team now. Like Ellis, Owen has spent a lot of time with practices, games, workouts, but he too gladly spends all that time doing those things because of how much he loves it. As parents, Kelly and I, we almost never miss an opportunity to go and see our children do the things that we love. We will gladly spend any amount of time it takes to do this. For Ellis, we will spend all day and all night on a Saturday in scorching hot temperatures at a band competition. All day and all night just to watch him perform for 15 minutes. For Owen, he's a 7th grader on the junior high varsity team. Junior high varsity team is made up of 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. Now, for those of you who understand sports, you know what that means for playing time. You know, as it goes, if you're a 7th grader on the junior high varsity team, you ain't gonna get much playing time. That's just the way it is, okay? The older kids, the 8th and the 9th graders, are gonna get most of the playing time. Right now, at ball games, if the game's a blowout, I wanna get to play a little bit of time, a few minutes. But if the game is really close to the end, more than likely he won't get to play any at all. But for Kelly and I, we will gladly choose to spend 3 hours traveling round trip. We'll spend a couple hours gladly in uncomfortable bleachers at a ball game that he might not even get to play 1 second. But we gladly do that because that's what we love. As a family, we also choose to spend our time together watching sports. For those of you who keep up with the Atlanta Braves, wasn't it a great year to be a Braves fan? Wasn't it a lot of fun watching them play baseball, especially the second half of the year into the playoffs? To see the Atlanta Braves win the World Series is just, man, it's just a fun way to spend our time. And of course, y'all all know we love Alabama basketball, or Alabama football and basketball as well. Not as many people are into college basketball, I understand, but the Alabama basketball team the last couple of years have actually gotten pretty good, and we're hoping they can make a deep run this year into the playoffs. We'll see how it plays out. As far as the football, sorry, Eric. SEC championship, enough said. Now, I've just given a few. If you got to admit, it's been a few times since I mentioned Alabama football, so I got to have to catch back up, So, but I've just given just a few small examples of some of the ways that we spend our time as a family, and I'm sure all of you have similar examples that you could give about the way you spend your time on the things that you enjoy. The point of this example is this: as we go through this life, we will gladly spend any amount of time it takes to do the things that we want to do in this life. We don't have the power to actually create time, but what do we say when somebody says, "Have you got time for that?" Our response is always, "Oh, I'll make time." Well, we know we can't actually make time. Time is already established for us. We can't change it. But the idea behind that is that we will spend our time on the things that are most important to us. The way we use our time reveals what we love the most. The way we use our time reveals what we love the most. And based on that, how much do we love the Lord? How much time do we spend on Him? Along that same thought, how much time do we spend on spiritual things? The opportunities to choose to spend time on the Lord and on spiritual things, they abound. There's 2 worship services every Sunday. There's 2 Bible classes every week on Sunday morning and Wednesday night. Every month there's a ladies' Bible class. Every month there's a men's Bible class. Every July we have a gospel meeting. Every June we have VBS. And the list goes on for the opportunities for us to choose to spend our time on spiritual things. There's a running joke around here for the men of the congregation. When you see James Harrington walking your way, you better look out. You know what's coming. He came up to me a couple of weeks ago, and he didn't bother to make any small talk, like, "How's it going? How's your week been?" None of that. He walked up to me, and he just simply said, "December 12th. I knew exactly what he was going to say next. He then said, "Josh is going to be out of town that day. Can you preach that morning?" Well, I knew that I would be able to, and so, of course, I said yes. But I could have said no. I could have said, "I'm just not going to really be able to. Check with Hunter. I think he'd like to preach again." I could have said no. I could have chosen not to spend my time preparing a lesson and then delivering it. It takes time to prepare a lesson. Isn't that right, Bailey? Buddy's been working on that for a while now. It takes time. Every year around the 1st of December, Wesley puts up a new sign-up list for teachers for the next year. We all know there's always a great need for Bible class teachers within the Lord's church. It takes a lot of time to prepare to teach a Bible class for 3 months. I think that list is still on the board with some open spots now. The thought of a sermon about making a budget based on our time, I thought a lot about it. It could have really went a lot of ways. It could have been very deep. It could have developed into a mock budget. If I was somebody that did PowerPoints, I could have put up a PowerPoint with a mock budget. Don't be laughing at me, Bailey. We could have done a mock budget on the PowerPoint there. All right, I got my sons to help me with it anyway. Could have been numerous categories. Some of the categories could have been, a good use of our time. Some of the categories, a terrible use of our time. But eventually, it all boils down to something short and simple. If you will, just picture this in your mind. Picture your own budget based on your own time. Think about that for just a minute. Think in your mind about if you made a budget based on your own time, what would it look like? Where would it show that you're spending your time? Maybe it would go something like this. Yeah, looks like I spend a lot of time working. Got to earn a living though. Man, I spend a lot of time at school. Man, I hate school. Sleeping takes a lot of time, but we got to have a good night's rest. If I could spend a little less time eating, maybe I could lose a few pounds. Oh yeah, love spending time with the family. Wish I could do more of that. What's this? Do I really spend that much time on my phone? Wow, didn't realize that. Wait a minute. This can't be right. I spend all that time on my phone, but I only spend this small amount of time on this. A lot more time on my phone than in my Bible. And the comparisons of spending our time usefully in a wise manner versus the comparisons of wasting our time, they could go on and on. Remember the statement from earlier? The way we use our time reveals what we love the most. Look, this ain't rocket science. Where are we spending our time? What are we spending our time on? Sure, some of our time is required in some areas, like I mentioned earlier. But what about the free time in our life? The time that we actually have the opportunity to choose what we're going to do with that time. Ephesians 5:15 and 16 reads, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil." In other words, live your life carefully. Don't be foolish, but be wise, making the best use of your time, because the days are evil. How are we spending our time? What are we spending our time on? Are we being wise and making the best use of our time? Making the best use of our time for ourselves and for the Lord? Or are we spending our time in a foolish manner that really isn't good for anyone? If you're here this morning as a child of God, but you haven't been making the best use of your time, or maybe a better way of putting it is you've simply been wasting your time, make a change. If you need the prayers of the church to help you be a better steward of your time, the church is always here for you. Or if there's anyone here this morning that's just simply never used your time wisely to obey the gospel of Jesus Christ, there's no better time than right now. We've been talking about time this morning. The Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 6:2, "Behold, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation." The time to obtain your salvation is right now. Don't wait another minute. If there's anyone here this morning that needs to respond to our Lord's invitation, please do so now as we stand and sing.